The video you are about to watch is a training video intended for maintenance and operation of the water tender. It is in no way meant to supersede or override any Orange County Fire Authority SOPs. As with any training session, I reckon we have to have some place to start. So starting at the front of the vehicle, just as good a place as any. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the windshield. As with any emergency vehicle, windshield is very critical. If damage occurs to the windshield, then of course the vehicle would be taken out of service. What we're going to show you is some preventive maintenance to the windshield that would be less likelihood of taking the vehicle out of service. As can be seen here, we've tilted the nose of the hood up a little bit. This is going to be to demonstrate you access to the windshield for proper cleaning. There is one thing that you must keep in mind: the windshield wipers. We're going to tilt one of the windshield wiper arms out of the way. That way you can see a little bit better what we're going to be talking about.
But
as you can see, the windshield wiper arm has been flipped out of the way, giving you better access to cleaning the windshield. The problem with this is when you set the nose of the hood back down, you must remember to get the windshield wiper back up against the windshield glass. If not, if the windshield wiper arm is not set back up against the glass, then of course damage to the windshield wiper arm will occur. Must be reminded that the windshield wiper arms are spring loaded. So care must be given when setting the arms up against the glass that the arm is not just turned loose and allowed to strike the glass. If conditions are right, that windshield wiper arm, because of the springs, can strike the glass and cause damage to the windshield. So care must be given when putting the windshield wiper arm back up against the glass. All right, continuing on from the windshield, we're going to come down now to underneath the hood. While we have the hood open, we'll go ahead and discuss a few things under here. What we're going to look at first is the engine transmission's dipstick. The yellow is the engine's dipstick, engine's oil dipstick. Little one behind it is the transmission. The transmission dipstick is clearly marked. It's red. The engine oil is yellow. Moving along over here, we'll pan out a little bit. Down here, if I can get this thing to move, right here. Okay, first we got power steering reservoir. Now, with these internationals, power steering reservoir is a Texaco power steering fluid. It's not advised to put anything other than what's recommended by International in the system. Damage can occur to the power steering system. Back from it, windshield washer reservoir. Windshield washer reservoir right now has windshield washer fluid. Don't put water in it, primarily because during the winter it can freeze, plus water alone cannot clean the windshield properly. Windshield washer fluid is made for cleaning the windshield. Moving over, this reservoir right here is the overflow bottle and reservoir for the radiator. It's got a cap on top. Get you a little bit better shot of that cap. That cap right there is the radiator cap. This is a closed system, so coolant can be added through this. This is where the system is actually filled with coolant. Again, this engine has a recommendation of coolant. In an emergency, if the engine is extremely low on coolant, put water in it. Otherwise, 50-50 antifreeze of the proper type is required. Just to mention this, a lot of people are concerned about air conditioning. There is the air conditioning compressor. This vehicle is air conditioned. This pipe that we're looking at right here, this is a charged air line coming from the turbocharger to a cooler in front of the radiator on its way to the engine. This is the air the engine physically uses to run. When this engine's running, do not put your hand on that pipe. That pipe will be extremely warm. The one that's really dangerous is the one on the other side where it comes from the turbocharger going to the charged air cooler, which we'll take a look at in just a few seconds. What we'll do now is we'll take a look at the power steering unit. This is the power steering unit. The thing you want to watch on here is when you do your check, where this big arm comes off of the power steering gearbox, make sure to check it occasionally. Make sure you don't have any oil leaks there. Same way as where the shaft goes into from the steering arm inside the cab. Make sure there's no oil leaks around that seal either. Shown here is the alternator, and just below it is the charged air line coming off of the turbocharger. Now this will be extremely hot when this vehicle is running. So care must be kept to keep your hands off of it. You can transfer meat with that. The alternator, again, will run hot. Thing about the alternator is when you're cleaning this engine, you can clean it with a steam jetty or a pressure washer. Make sure that alternator is cold to the touch. If the alternator is too hot to touch, then you don't want to clean it. You can damage the alternator. Air filter housing sitting here. This is where the air is coming from outside going to the engine. A bonnet matches up with on the hood and just directs air from outside to the engine itself. What we're going to look at here real quick just for a few seconds before we move on is one of your two tow eyes. The tow eyes are directly attached to the chassis. They can be used to tow the vehicle, but it is recommended that if the vehicle has to be towed, then a wrecker with a lift arm should be used. We've moved to the left-hand side of the vehicle. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the battery box and the battery charger connection. Battery charger connection is a 110-volt receptacle located right here. You plug 110 volt into this. There's an onboard battery charger for charging the batteries. The batteries are located underneath this cover just on the steps. We'll pan out a little bit. What we're going to do is take the cover off so you can actually see the battery location themselves. As you can see, the cover has been removed from the battery box. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, let you see a little bit better shot of the batteries themselves. What you see here are the positive connections of the battery. Because of the electronics on these vehicles now, computers for the engine, computers for the transmission, the braking system, everything else, it is vital that these battery connections be kept clean. In order to clean these, the grounds, of course, must be removed first, and then the hots, the positives. All the connections must be cleaned, and then the positives put back on, and then the grounds. Again, this is extremely vital. The computers require clean connections between the batteries in order to maintain proper operation of the vehicle. All right, next place we're going to go is inside the cab for a few minutes. Take a look around inside there and discuss what we have. Right here, just inside the door opening, kind of hard to see it behind this little grab handle right here, is the battery switch, on-off battery switch. It's two positions, either on or off. Because of the computers on these rigs, the 1-2 battery, both battery switch is pretty well a thing of the past. The vehicle requires all the battery power it can get to start and run. The thing with this switch is, under no circumstances should you turn this battery switch off while the engine's running. Damage to the alternator and possibly to the computers can result. From this battery switch, we'll pan up to the seat. And just to show you the adjustment controls for the seat, these will raise and lower the seat. Raise and lower the seat, and it will also tilt the back a little bit. This is for driver comfort. The two controls are located on the outside part of the seat when you first open the door. Before we actually climb inside, we'll take a look and show you the brake pedal and the accelerator pedal located down on the floor. That's the best place for them. Let's see here. There they are right there, where brake pedals and accelerator pedals normally are. Is a camera located in the center of the dash, just down at the bottom underneath. you'll find 2 plates engraved in Pennsylvania when this vehicle was completed. The top plate is the vehicle identification plate, gives you the month and year of the vehicle with its vehicle identification number, VIN. Then it'll have the GVW rating of the vehicle. Then it'll have the front tires, rear tires, inflation pressures, rim size. It'll have the front axle GVW rating, the rear axle GVW rating, and then it'll vehicle classification. In the top right hand corner of that plate and the top right hand corner of the plate just below it, you will see a number that says GSO. In this particular case, it's 4967. That is the identification number of this particular vehicle to KME. If you call the service center in Ontario and you request parts or service for the vehicle, whoever you talk to, whoever your contact is, would ask you for that GSO number. This is so we can identify the vehicle in our price books, parts books, or service reference. The plate on the bottom is the lubrication plate, fluid capacity plate. This plate will tell you how many quarts of engine oil, how many quarts transmission fluid, how many quarts of coolant, rear axle oil, transfer case oil, such. You will notice there are no brand names on there, as KME will not recommend a brand unless it's specified by the manufacturer of that particular component. The manufacturer of the fluid or lubricant used in the vehicle is up to the discretion of the Orange County Fire Authority, as long as it meets or surpasses equipment manufacturer specifications such as engine, transmission, pump, rear axle manufacturer. Pictured here, of course, is the dashboard with the various operating gauges of the vehicle. Transmission temperature gauge. We'll zoom in a little bit. Transmission temperature gauge, water temperature gauge, oil pressure gauge, and then of course we have our tachometer, engine RPMs if you prefer, speedometer with an odometer, fuel level gauge, voltmeter, condition of the system, electrical system, first air and second air. Now you notice you do have 2 air gauges. One's marked first air, the other one's second air. This is your primary and secondary. Primary being the first, which is the rear air. Secondary being the front, which is the secondary air. The primary air is the air used to stop the vehicle rear end. You always apply air to the rear brakes first, and then as the foot valve opens further, you will take air and apply it to the front. There is a 3-way check valve that in the event you lose air to either one of these 2 circuits, the other circuit will continue to maintain stable braking of the system. That's why you have 2 separate air gauges, 2 separate air systems. Various other components. One here is the switch for the full-wave flashers. That little lever is sitting right there. If you pull it toward you, you can tilt the steering column for driver comfort. We'll keep going around. Windshield washer controls and wiper controls arm here, and we'll continue moving around. Right down here, outside speaker switch, so you can turn your radio speaker to the outside, gives you that control. Parking lights, running lights, and this is your dashboard panel light, so you can lighten or darken your dash panel at night for driver's comfort. Located just below the headlight switch is the PTO control switch. This is for engaging or disengaging the pump. Transmission has to be in neutral, parking brake set. The pump is put into pump gear, the valves are lined up. Then the switch is put in. Then the indicator light will come on telling you you're in pump gear. Now there is another part that we use along with this, which, pardon the jiggling, I'll move the camera over to the other side. Jiggle, jiggle. All right, now here we have an OK to pump light. OK to pump is telling you that the pump is lined up and ready to go. You're now pumping. Along with that, ignition switch, we have a pump and roll light. Now, pump and roll light, this vehicle has the capability of pumping and roll. One time you have the pump in pump gear, you can release the brakes, put the transmission in drive. The transmission will go to second gear, and you can pump and roll. The reason why it goes to second gear, if it goes any higher, then there's a very good likelihood of damage to the pump and to the PTO on the side of the transmission. So you are limited to second gear so you don't overspeed everything. Now, the vehicle weighs, because of vehicle weight, you have a secondary braking system as required. This is your secondary braking system. It's your exhaust brake. You have the option, you can turn the brake on or off just by turning this switch off or on. When the secondary brake switch is on, as it is right now, ignition's on, the engine running, that little light, indicator light in the switch will flash. Wrong way. Whoops, too close. That little indicator light right above the word on, if I can focus, there it is right there. That little indicator light will flash when the jake brake is, or the exhaust brake is on. All right, what we're looking at here is a light switch panel for your code 3 lights and other lights. What we'll do is we'll start with each individual little light. First, what we're going to look at is this little thing right here. This is the indicator for your load manager. What the load manager does is actually monitors the electrical system on the vehicle. In the event that you have an electrical failure, such as an alternator, we'll say the alternator throws a fan belt, or the alternator, something happens to the alternator and it's no longer producing. Normally the little green light will be on telling you the load manager's on. Then there'll be a little red light telling you that something's happened. And what'll happen is as battery voltage drops, the load manager will start shutting off non-essential loads on the vehicle to maintain battery power, such as the most unnecessary load on this vehicle, believe it or not, is the air conditioner. It's the heaviest load you have. So what'll happen is actually shut the air conditioner off. And then, because batteries will tend to spring back, about 10 minutes later the air conditioner will come back on. It'll run for a little bit, battery voltage will drop, the air conditioner will shut off, and it'll continue to do that until the battery voltage is so low that it cannot maintain the air conditioner. The air conditioner won't come back on at all. It will continue doing that to loads that are prioritized within the load manager system. The load manager does not in any way maintain or regulate DOT or primary warning, which is your second switch. It will not maintain those at all. They are totally removed from the load manager's control. So the load manager will not do anything with those. Continuing on in our switch panel, another primary thing that the load manager does is on the master switch. In years past, when we turned the master switch on, we turned all of our lights on at the same time, or we turned them all off at the same time. And what happened was we actually created this firing spike within the batteries and the alternator, and we had premature battery failure and alternator failure. So what's happened now is when you turn the master switch on, lights will come on in a sequence. They will come on one right after the other. And then when you turn the master switch off, they will go off one right after the other. This is to prevent a firing spike within the alternator and batteries. It'll actually help maintain the life in batteries and alternator. Individual switches, we'll take a look. Primary warning, light bar center, left and right, scene lights, and then below it we have ground lights, and then alley lights, left and right alley lights, and then you have steady reds, and then of course your rear scene lights, and then of course the red dump switch is under the the dump switch is underneath the red switch cover. You will notice that when the parking brake on this vehicle is set and you do a morning check on your lights, that if your parking brake is on, your white forward facing flashing lights will not come on. That is because when these vehicles are parked, they have been known to blind drivers coming at them. So NFPA and DOT got together and decided that it's best if when the parking brake is set, that the forward-facing white lights will go out. So when you do your morning check and you want to check your lights, have someone hold your brakes for you, release the parking brake, and then check your white lights and or chock the wheels, whichever is more comfortable to you. This noisy little thing is our door open indicator. It's a red flashing light, rather nasty sounding little buzzer. When the compartment door, cab open door is open, you release the parking brake, this light will come on and the audible alarm will come along with it. Little tag below it says do not move apparatus when light is on. I'm going to go ahead and set the turn the battery switch on and release the parking brake so you can hear and see what this thing does. Alright, you're going to release the parking brake. And I'm sure you can hear that. It'll probably wake the living dead. And we'll shut it back off again. And of course it goes off. Alright, we've pretty well finished the inside the cab. Before we go to the pump panel, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the body of the vehicle and discuss the many things on the body that care can be given and maybe help you operate the vehicle a little bit easier. First thing we're going to do is look at these compartment doors, these roll-up doors. There's very little maintenance to the door, but there is some that can be done. It has to be done to properly maintain the doors. Well, what we're going to talk about now is the doors. Of course, you realize already that the doors are made out of aluminum, so I won't even mention that. But there are some things that you can do to maintain these doors to make them open a little bit easier. What we're going to talk about is the tracking on the doors. There's a track on either side, and we'll zoom in a little bit. And we'll take a look at this track. Now the track is also aluminum, and we'll move around over here, so pardon the jiggling for a second or two, or three or four. And let's see if I can find it. There's one there someplace, right there. There's a good one right there. Of course, you got two for each door. And the thing about these tracks, they are aluminum. And if over a period of time, they will get road dirt inside of them or whatever. And it's very important to keep these tracks clean. If not, dirt will accumulate inside of them, make the doors more and more difficult to open or close. So all you need to do is just take a rag, put it on the tip of your finger, and run the rag up and down inside the track, and I'll demonstrate that for you. All you do is just put a rag on the tip of your finger, put it inside the track, and run it up the track. Now, that rag was clean. There's the dirt. Okay? Do not put any kind of grease or silicone or anything else inside that track. They will only attract and hold the dirt, and after a period of time cause the door to gald to the track, make it harder and harder to open the doors. The doors do not require any other maintenance than that, other than just cleaning the outside of them, but that's pretty well it. Just keep the tracks clean. The doors will do just fine. Before moving along too much further toward the rear of the vehicle, this little light right here, just below the front door, the compartment door on the body, is a DOT light. This is a running light, turn signal and running light. So when you do your DOT check, this light must operate also as a turn signal and as a running light. Now we'll move to the back end. What we're looking at here is the lower rear corner of the vehicle. It's on the left-hand side, of course. Two more DOT lights, one on the right, on the outside, and then this one on the inside, just below turn signal, brake, backup lights. Then you have a code light, and then of course you have a DOT light here, and then you have three more DOT lights inside on your rear bumper. These are all DOT, they are required. This is a rear dump switch here. This dump switch operates the rear dump for your tank. You have another one on the dash. Showed you one on the dash already. And then coming up, a DOT light, and then a code light back here, and then a rear work light. Kind of hard to see, this bright sunlight. Now continuing on, what's this I hear someone say, how about opening up the dump so we can see what the dump looks like? Okay, fine. I enjoy doing stuff like that. Switch to operate the dump. That was a lot of somebody's water in a terrible hurry. Hope I don't have to pay for it. Okay, along with the rear dump, and I don't really think I want to open it right now, we have two direct tank fills. Let's see, zoom in on them. There's one right there. This is where you connect a 2.5 directly to the rig. You can go ahead and fill the tank here, or here, or you can actually tie both of them in at the same time and fill it through both of them. Right on the rear end of the vehicle. Then you have a little compartment right down here. No, I do not want to open up the dump. I didn't particularly want that thing open now. I don't know about you, but I got my feet wet. And of course today that feels pretty good. On the right hand side of the vehicle, now that my feet are soaking wet and I'm trying to dry out, open up the door for a little storage for your folded tank back here. Just above the step and the right rear DOT lights and rear warning light. The DOT lights, it's kind of hard to see them unless you walk up close to them. I can't do it with the camera all that well. These are LEDs, and LEDs are the thing today. There are 32 flash patterns in that one LED light. So it's rather simple to make them change their flash, but you can do wonders with LED. Nice thing about these, if one little element burns out, the light continues to operate. It doesn't destroy the whole light. The steps. This step right here is the latest in NFPA. It's a 300-pound step, and if you look at the surface of it, it's rather coarse, and that is for a non-skid surface. Same as the aluminum used on this vehicle. All the aluminum, you'll notice that has a cross-hatching on the diamonds. That is the latest NFPA non-skid walking surface requirements. Moved up the right-hand side of the vehicle to the front axle. The hub you're looking at right here in the very center of this wheel is an oiler for the wheel bearings, where years ago we greased them, hand-packed and greased them. They're now running in a bath and 90-weight gear oil. The bearings seem to run a lot cooler. The lubrication is more positive. The only thing you have to do is occasionally check this front oiler, make sure these bearings have plenty of oil in them. It goes up about halfway up that little sight glass right there. You have to, if you look at them and there's no oil there, notify someone as soon as possible to prevent damage to your wheel bearings on the front end. Now that we've pretty well covered the body and the inside the cab and the front of the cab and everything else, what we're going to be talking about now is the pump panels and pump controls. But I thought before we take a look at the left-hand side panel, we'll open up the right-hand side panel and take a look at the various things inside. Maybe that'll help you understand things a little bit easier. All right, we've opened up the compartment door, the pump panel door on the right-hand side, and inside the panel, just on the bottom, toward the rear of the rig, is a priming pump. Now you'll notice there is no priming oil tank, as we've stopped using priming oil with these Hale pumps. This is called their ESP primer, or oilless primer. Very much so enthused by EPA. Takes a special vein. It's more of a wood composite than anything else. It doesn't really cause any pollution problems at all. Smells kind of funny when you're priming with it, but doesn't hurt anything. Above that, this big brass thing right here is the strainer for the foam system. Now there's a handle located toward the front of it. That is a manual flushing handle. You actually pull that thing down with your pump producing water and it will flush that strainer. That's to be done in the event that your foam system stops operating correctly. The foam pump itself is located right here. It's water operated. Water from the pump operates this pump. That's the purpose of the strainer, is to feed this pump clean water. So if you start having problems with the foam pump not producing correctly, then you might want to open this panel up and flush that strainer. If necessary, the cap can come off. That big brass cap can come off and the strainer can be cleaned manually, but of course the truck has to be shut down. Various plumbing inside the pump house, kind of hard to see. The discharge here, master intake there with its strainer. The strainer, of course, must be kept in place and intact. What you see right here, zoom in a little bit, see if it'll show it a little bit better, is suction side relief valve as required by NFPA. These are usually set about 120 pounds, 125 pounds from Elkhart when KME receives them. To adjust this, the bolt sticking out the front, right there, you run that bolt in to increase the opening pressure, back it out to decrease the opening pressure, make it open a little bit sooner. This to be adjusted to the fire department specifications. So this can be adjusted any time. You don't really need to open up the panel to adjust it. You can actually reach it from underneath. One last thing about this suction side relief, if you follow this pipe down underneath the rig, you will find a 2.5-inch NST adapter, chrome adapter on the end of that pipe. That is so you can attach a 2.5-inch hose to that adapter and run it away from the rig. You want to do that in the event the rig is parked in off-road type situation. That valve opens up, it's going to produce a lot of water. When it does, it could create problems with getting the rig out. You want to run a 2.5-inch hose from here to away from the rig and make sure you tie it down. If this valve opens and that hose is not tied down, you could and would end up with a wild hose situation. Make sure it's tied down. Let's do a last but not least. We're going to be dealing now with the pump panel. This is the pump operator station, of course. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the individual gauges and handles and controls, and we'll explain a little bit about them, and we'll go on from there. Starting at the top left-hand corner of the panel is our two master gauges. The one on the left is the master intake gauge, and one on the right is the discharge gauge of the pump. Next to that is a tachometer telling you engine RPM. And then, of course, the four little gauges here. These are your function gauges: oil pressure, water temperature, fuel gauge, etc. Of the vehicle. Next to that is the two little alarm speakers. Very noisy little things, but when you have a problem and this engine's running, these will tell you there's something wrong. Then you know where to look. Foam level indicator lights here, telling us right now we have approximately half a tank of foam. And then next to it is our water level indicator and our water tank. Even after my feet getting drenched, we still got 3/4 of a tank of water. Individual outlet gauges here. These are telling you which discharge you're producing from. Individual outlet controls. These will tell you whether they're foam or not. They have a mark on them telling you that discharge 1, discharge 2, foam, etc. Tank fill valve. We'll bring it in a little bit further. Tank fill control here. You can fill your tank, of course, from the outside. Okay to pump light. You have the same thing on the inside the cab. This is telling you the transmission's lined up and everything's ready to be pumped. Hand throttle, of course, you're used to these. You run it out, run it in. The red button, a lot of people have a misconception of these. That's red button's an emergency type of thing. You don't want to get in the habit of just hitting that button and slowing the pump down, especially if you have someone on a hand line. That could be dangerous. Below that is 2 more discharge gauges, individual discharge gauges, individual discharge control here. This is going to be discharge number 1. Moving back toward the back of the panel. Auxiliary engine cooler. This is a shell and tube type cooler for the engine itself. In the event your engine overheats, you want to open this valve up, allow water to circulate through the cooler, remove heat from the engine's cooling system. These things do work. Pump panel lights. Turn the switch on, of course lights come on. When you put the pump in pump gear, you will notice one light comes on automatically. That is another indicator light that your pump's in pump gear, ready to go. Tank to pump valve. We're all used to this. This standard valve, you open it, pull it out, close it, you push it in. Next to that is the hand controls for the relief valve. Only pressure regulating device you have on the vehicle. This must be exercised often to ensure that it does work when you need it. Moving over, these are going to be your foam system control valves. Top right hand is foam flush. You turn it, it's at right now is flush. You want to flush the system out when you're through with it. You don't want to leave raw foam in the system. If you turn it so the arrow is pointing down, you'll be producing foam. This valve takes you to winterize or off, or to actually produce foam. This puts you percentage-wise, tells you how much percentage you're actually producing to the field. Very simple foam system, it works very well. Moving across to the rear. Where the valve is at right now is foam flush, so you're actually going to flush out your system, and then when the handle is turned, it'll actually produce foam. Standard Hale priming valve. Pull this, your priming pump will operate, prime the pump. Moving back, sight gauge, bottom glass, and we have a valve at the top. Shut that valve off, of course the sight gauge won't function. It's just another indicator telling you how much water you have in your water tank. Down on this valve down here on the very bottom, there's a small little drain cock. You can open that drain cock up and wash the sediment out of that sight glass, because they will get dirty after a while. Controls for your auxiliary inlet, 2.5-inch auxiliary inlet with its drain valve, quarter turn drain valve. And then we have bleeder valves across the bottom. Master pump drain. Master pump drain is used in the event that the truck is going to be sitting outside in freezing weather, if that ever happens. If someone's going to go into and physically work on the pump, they don't want to lay there and take a bath all day. So they open this up and it'll physically drain all the water out of the pump. Or if you're going to draft or pull a dry vacuum on this pump to test it, you want as much water out of here as you can. The higher the heat, the ambient temperature, the lower the boiling point of water. So when you pull a prime on it, so if you pull a dry vacuum and the water's still inside that pump, the water can actually boil off into steam and make it a terrible lot harder to draft. So you want to drain all the water out of it you possibly can as quickly as you can. So you open that drain valve, pretty well drain the whole bottom side of that pump. Then 3 more individual bleeder valves. Pump speed counter here, used when we actually do a drafting test with these vehicles. Use a hand counter and a stopwatch to tell what the engine's actual RPMs are. What people are doing nowadays mostly is just using a computer and tie into the vehicle's computer. It tells them how fast the engine is turning. And a pump data plate. Now this pump was tested. This is how many gallons it produced at what RPM. It has the pump's model and serial number engraved on it also, and the vehicle's GSO engraved on it. Located below a metal plate coming from Hale. This is from Hale itself when they produce and delivered the pump itself. This is the model and serial number of the pump. So if parts are needed for this pump, whoever you order the parts from, hopefully KME, would have to have this model and serial number of this pump. It's the only way we can identify the parts that are physically inside of the pump. Well, that's pretty well it for the rig. What we're going to do now is we're just going to take a look at two last things on the rig. Up on the top of the tank, the forward one is the fill tower for the foam tank. The rear one is fill tower for the water tank. These should never be anchored closed. They have a little latch on them, which is fine. They should be able to open up on their own if they want to, especially the water, prevent damage to that water tank. The foam tank, of course, is integral with the water tank. They're physically part of it. Have a lifetime warranty on that tank. The tank is made by UPF. Inside the lid of those tanks is a number that's etched into the lid, and that'll tell you the serial number of that tank. In order to maintain the warranty on that, you have to have that number when you call UPF for a warranty claim. Hopefully in the last 40 minutes or so, we've given you a good insight of the care and operation of your vehicle. We at KME Fire Apparatus like to thank Orange County Fire Authority for their assistance in making this training video. Last but not least, y'all have a good one.